Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Good ride today? Where all you end up?
We ended up heading north towards Oxford, out through Oceana, back down through Riley.
Lots of carbon.
Lots of carbon.
Thank you. This whole idea came about a couple of months back, and I got together with Rich and Nita and Gina, some other people that you may know that frequent events like this, Tea Party type people who support the idea of freedom. Isn't that a strange statement? People that support the idea of freedom, that it would be a limited number of people. And I told them, I said, you know, we do all these tea parties, I said, and we're doing some great work. Tea parties have had an incredible impact over the past couple of years. Really brought people together. It has been influencing elections, getting great people elected, getting legislation passed that is good for all Americans, regardless of where they are. All of these things are great. I said, but you know, we got to blow off some steam now and then too. I don't know about you, but I get wound so tight someday. You get home, you're kicking the dog, you're yelling, you're screaming and stuff. You know what I mean? You have to turn off the TV or radio sometimes because you're so frustrated by it. I said, we got to be able to blow off some steam. We know we're right. We know we're doing the right things. Sometimes you got to be able to blow off some steam. So I presented on the air one day the idea that if you actually like the environment and look around, look at all of God's splendor on a day like today. Look around. Is this spectacular or what? Well, if the extreme people on the left, the greenies, get their way and they continue to offset all of their carbon, wouldn't that upset the balance? So I said, you know, I try to do what I can each and every day to create as much carbon as possible. I'm a defiant sort of person normally. I said, but maybe we all should be creating as much carbon as possible to offset the offsets of the crazy people. And as long as the EPA is going to tell us that things like CO2 are pollutants that plants need in order to survive, and they try to limit those number of pollutants, aren't they then hurting all of the greenery that we love? The very thing that they say they're trying to protect and save? I say they are. So it's our job to create as much carbon as possible, and that was the concept for this wonderful carbon party. I also just wanted to get together and drink some wine. Who's all for drinking some wine today and having a good time on a beautiful day? I don't know if you've noticed, but whether it's Cancun or whether it's Copenhagen, it does not matter where the greenies get together, the extreme green weenies get together. Whenever they have a conference, what happens? It snows! Blizzards come in! Gina was there in Cancun, Mexico, tropical. What happens? Horrible cold weather. The people that are saying they need to get together because of global warming, every time they get together, there are record cold snaps. We get together, and look what happens. Beautiful day. We have got some great speakers today. Congressman Steve Chabot's going to join us in a minute. We're going to hear from a gentleman from the Coal Producers of Ohio Coal Association to tell us the real story when it comes to alternative forms of energy. Really, aren't they all alternative? I mean, is there one that we dictate as the form of energy? No. So if you say alternative forms, it could be any of those things. But unfortunately, the brainwashing has continued year after year after year that leads us to believe that unless it's just sun or wind, it's not good for us. I say all of that stuff can be good, and it really does need a multi-pronged attack. America has been blessed like no other country with limitless minerals. Think about what we have in America. Do you know 20% of the world's fresh water is in the Great Lakes system? 20% of the entire world's fresh water flows past Ohio. That's not including the Colorado River, the Missouri River, the Ohio River, anything else. Any of the lakes in Minnesota. 20% in the Great Lakes system alone. America's blessed. Think about the amount of lumber we have. Not just in the Northwest. Alaska, you've got it all across the country. Gold, silver, zinc, it goes on and on and on. Coal, natural gas, oil. America has been blessed, but there are some people out there that say we shouldn't take advantage of those minerals that God has blessed us with. And I say, we are stewards of the planet. We can use those minerals and still have a wonderful place to live. Who's with me? Thank you so much. Do you remember that thing called the spotted owl? Do you remember the spotted owl, which caused so much contention in America from people like me that say, I don't want to see the spotted owl go away, but I also want development and I want to go get those trees. And the people who say the spotted owl should remain regardless of what it does to everybody else and everything else. That was 20-some years ago. In the early 90s, that's when that whole debate popped up and has continued. So they set aside a huge chunk of land that said, loggers, you can't touch these logs because of the spotted owl. How is the spotted owl doing today? Even in the area that they set aside. This morning, I drove back from Columbus because I drove here by way of Columbus, and I'm not kidding. And I was listening to the radio, and this morning, as I'm driving to the Carbon Sense Carbon Party, I hear on the radio about the barred owl. The barred owl is now responsible for killing all of the spotted owls. All of that land that we set aside for the spotted owl is now filled with the barred owl, which has taken over all of the spotted owl's habitat. The spotted owl is still tanking. Now, at that point, you think reasonable, smart, educated scientists would then say, that didn't work so well. Maybe Mother Nature's going to run its course regardless of what Doc Thompson does or what you do. You would think that they would recognize their failures, but no. Instead, they say two things. They need to set aside more land for the spotted owl. And number two, they need to have a program that goes and kills the barred owls. They are working on a plan right now to have people go and kill the barred owls. That would beg the question, who will step forward and defend the barred owls? Where will we put land aside for the barred owls? I don't even know what a barred owl is, but it's another type of owl apparently. So now, it wasn't enough that they tried to protect the spotted owl at great loss to loggers and people who could have benefited from all of those logging jobs and the minerals therein, that they failed at that task, not because of them, but because Mother Nature sent another owl to say, I want this land, get the hell out. Now they've got to stick their nose in with the barred owl. What's going to come next? Some other owl? Some other creature? We can only do so much to control this. Ultimately, it's God's choice. It's God's decision. And we're foolish to think otherwise. There is a similar plan right now in Australia. In fact, I'll probably end up talking about both of these on the air tomorrow. There's a similar plan that I just found out about last week to kill the camels in Australia. There's about 1.2 million feral camels in Australia. Now, they're not indigenous. In roughly the 1840s, they brought a bunch of camels into Australia to help people get across the desert. The camels were like, wow, this is great, and they reproduced. And it was good. 1.2 million feral camels. They are going to start a camel extermination program. Now, they claim the camels are killing all the vegetation, stomping on stuff. The goats can't eat them because the camels are eating it, all of this stuff. But the real reason they're going to exterminate them is because they're bad for the planet. They belch and fart a whole lot, and therefore they're creating too much methane. So Australia, in order to do its part, is going to start a camel extermination program to save the planet. Now, here's the insidious part. They are going to start offering to people who kill these camels carbon credits. You know that cap and tax program that they were working on here in America? Well, Australia passed a version of that. And I always said the cap and tax program is really bad because it's only a matter of time before they tell individuals, not just businesses, guess what? you're creating too much carbon, you're polluting, so you all are going to have a personal cap and tax. That was my fear. Well, I think this is pretty obvious the way this is going. Australia, having their new cap and tax program, said they will offer these carbon credits if you go shoot and kill a camel. I haven't heard PETA screaming about it. Where are they in this? Now, if they can start offering carbon credits for other things that they deem to be helpful to the environment, where will that end? So these people who love the planet, who are trying to save the planet, who are all about God's little creatures, so they say, want to kill the barred owl because it's beating up the spotted owl, and want to kill the camels because they say it's bad for the planet. Now I ask you, who cares more about the planet? Doc Thompson, or these people who want to kill those animals, not for the meat, not for the resources, not for jobs, but simply because they don't like them? I say I care more about the planet. Are you with me on this? All right, we're going to get to some of our speakers now. We got Congressman Chabot's going to be up in a minute, but first up, the gentleman's going to tell you about the true alternate forms of energy, some of the things we really should be focusing on. I find it interesting that even administrations past, and I was just telling this a couple of minutes ago, that even administrations past, I mean, clearly Obama is extreme, his administration is extreme with this stuff, but even administrations past that had still done some things or were open to the idea or allowed some of the brown energy options really did not get out there and promote it. Did you ever really hear George W. Bush promote those other forms of energy? Now, he does not have a horrible record on it. I mean, he did kind of keep the EPA in check, but did he ever promote it? See, part of this is in the marketing. The current administration markets all of this green stuff and grandiose ideas and energy, and it's saving the rainbows and the unicorns, not the barred owls, but the rainbows and the unicorns, and it's doing great things. And green means jobs and all of this stuff, which is bogus. But they're out there promoting it. Did you hear George Bush 41 promote the idea of non-green energy? Who has promoted these things? Nobody. It's almost like the dirty little secret. We'll go ahead and do this stuff, but don't look behind the curtain. No, they should be out there saying America has these minerals, and these things are good. We can use them and still be responsible. Very few are out there willing to promote it. I fear we may have lost the marketing of it over the past couple of decades. That's part of it. I remember as a kid, I was watching the Super Friends. In the 70s. You got the Super Friends cartoon. Prior to the Legion of Doom Super Friends. The original ones with Wendy and Marvin and the Wonder Dog or whatever the hell his name was. And I'm watching it. And even as a kid, I started growing up. I got to be 10, 12, and I'm like, how come every villain is somebody who's damaging the environment? Did you ever catch that? Everybody was doing something. They were polluters. Superman was battling polluters. That's what was happening. Even as a kid, I was like, something's going on here. And that's what they've done. Started young and started people on this path that unless you are all about these other things and fighting against coal and natural gas and oil, that you are part of the problem. And I say, no, those are part of the solution. That's what we need. And we need people to finally market and say, these are good things. We should be using them. We can use them responsibly. Mike Carey is our first speaker from the Ohio Coal Associates, and he's going to tell us about one of those and hopefully a couple of the other ones.